That's why you just do it right at the beginning, get it out of the way.
No, I should just start doing that. I think you can set it so that it just records
Auto
immediately.
record.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this religious sensibility or spiritual sensibility, religious is the sort of group practice version of this, right? So like the shrines or the objects, they're imbued with like a design system that is meant to help you transcend, like mentally, like you are channeling, and they are totems, like to help you sort of take a look at how you're being in the world, right? Like they're a lens. Like so, and those lenses can be designed in a bunch of different ways. A lot of them have emerged naturally through like thousands of years of practice because the mentality's worked for some reason, right? Like it's right. So what we're getting now, which is interesting, and I think you're feeling into, is the doors are open because of the internet into how all of this stuff works, and you can see other people doing it. And a lot of the practice that I've run into is like, the tradition I came from was you just do this set of practices, and if you go over there, you're going to go to hell, or you're going to die, or it's bad, or what, it's very xenophobic, right? Which is fine, that worked in a world where information never traveled, like you wouldn't see anybody else, right? And a lot of the religious like structures are based on isolating people to keep them away from each other, so that they don't kill each other. Like, so we've got a different landscape now where like the social media is like, as it's a type of one of these things. It is a place where you can go and you have different behaviors, and it's cramming everybody into one space, and then they're fighting each other all the time. So there is some combination of these things, and part of it is that your individual like relationship to playing with these forces, right, or these mentalities or whatever. And so I think the thing that you're pointing to there was like, what is a relationship with like the potent practices of different religious like or spiritual like leanings? Like I have like a sort of meta view of this, that you should be able to embed yourself in the practice, like see what it feels like what you were doing, right? Or asking other people, like, what does this feel like to enact? Like, this is the Marie Kondo thing, is that too. Like, what does it feel like to thank your pants or whatever the hell, like at the end of the day? Like, and if that feels goofy, or if that feels odd, why? Like, what is that pointing to? What in your like stance on the world is making that odd? So like those are all things that can be challenged, and there are like psychic boundaries or self boundaries in there that if you push up against that stuff, you can have a closer relationship to being in the world, right? Because those frictions are their information. Anyways, but yeah, I think that ultimately, like having these spiritual practices, whatever they look like, they add an enormous amount of depth to your existence. Like without them, people feel like utter trash. So yeah.
Frictions or information. That's nice.
Yeah. That's where the best stuff comes in.
Yeah.
It's informative.
Yeah. Did you see a cockroach? Alive?
Alive?
Dead or alive? It's important. Alive? All right. So.
All right. So here's what we're gonna do.
Call the police.
Look, I just drew a bug too. It kind of looks like a cockroach before you announced it. Because all of this talk of like the animism, it makes me think of Miyazaki.
Yeah.
And his films are very what's the first one that you introduced me to, Totoro. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of going to pray to
Yeah.
I don't know what they're praying to. It's some spirit guide, but there's the, why I don't have the language for it, because we don't have this stuff in the United States. The structures and
The temples?
yeah, temples, but statues,
Shrines.
parks, shrines.
Yeah.
That are just tucked into little areas, and especially in the more rural areas where it's like a destination place,
Yeah.
and people go to pay their respects. But that sort of mentality, I think he uses to pay respects, and there's a shrine to nature oftentimes in his movies. So it makes the world feel magical too. It's a nice way to live. So there's the added benefit of it brings whimsy into the life, I think. If you can actually, I mean, there is some serious aspects to bowing to something and paying your respects and like the gratitude, but then there's also a playful aspect that it's sort of like the opposite of it, I think. That's, I don't know, nice for me.
It's humbling to bow down. It's such a good ego killer.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a few seconds, like, I'm bowing down to this thing, and I'm a very, I don't know, it's not stubborn, although I am, but head, there's a word for it.
Proud.
Well, you can be proud. Being proud is a good thing if you have a reason to be, but this is more of a, you don't have a reason. You're just born like that, where you go, I don't do this. Headstrong or whatever. Like, yeah.
It's a personality trait.
Yeah. Doing that kind of consistently, because I've seen it's very new. So in Sweden, we don't have that culture of bowing down to anybody. And in the previous place that I was staying at, there were relatives of the royal family living there, and there are ambassadors living there, and people are kind of high status in the country. They're living there and they're bowing down to each other, or even the security, right? So seeing that is so humbling from somebody that comes from, let's say, Europe, right? Where you go, there is none of that. Everybody talk at, like, you can't talk like, basically say anything to the king. Like when they are interviewing the king in Sweden, it's like a pal that I'm talking to. So actually, I like this. It's very grounding experience. But
that's interesting.
It introduces a kind of unity or congregation aspect. I don't know what the word is here, for people. We are not so different. We all bow to something bigger than ourselves, and it's not bowing to each other. It's bowing to something outside of humanity, which is kind of interesting. So all people do it. It doesn't matter what level you're at. Whereas in other cultures, you'll get into situations where bowing to authority figures that are other people. So there's a kind of, it levels the playing field a little bit in some ways, in certain contexts.
Yeah. Like, you cannot back on royalty. So you need to, just back out of the room.
Yep.
Yeah, there's like, I mean, so part of what you're pointing to, I think, here is like so in Sweden, it's a social democracy, right? And it's got its roots, like, so previous to that social democracy, I don't know the whole timeline, but you had the mentality that like, sort of feudal, or like, like royalty was as of God, right? Like you are in a master slave relationship effectively, as like a working, you know, a lower class person, and then the upper classes, and then there's God, and it sort of moves in a hierarchy up towards God, right? And that has some pros and cons, but a lot of people have a lot of nothing, and then the people at the top have everything. And then, you know, you get this churn of civilization where it doesn't work anymore, particularly around like the printing press coming to be, where information spreads, and democracy comes into play, where the premise is that everybody is equal, right? So then you get this interaction with each other that like, oh, we're just your peers in this, we're equal. And you know, it's simulating an equality in a lot of ways that doesn't actually
Yes.
exist, because
Yes.
there's a hidden layer of inequality. Like the king or royalty, those people are different than you can talk to them like they're your buddy, but their life is completely, you know, so okay, that's fine. And in the process of this equalization, you get the secularity thing, right? Where the ritualistic humiliation and these kinds of things, not humiliation in a bad way, but like, you know, bowing to a higher power that is beyond any sort of human domain, that stuff gets sort of, we don't do that stuff anymore. That's old magic or whatever. Um, so I think that the like sort of meta modern or these kinds of thinking like is to take the best from all of those things and to start to combine it into a way of living that like, okay, so we are somewhat equal, we should be able to be on equal footing when we talk to each other, but we can also celebrate the idea that we are lesser than the infinity that exists, right? and and you know, I don't know, there's social movement between these layers, all of this stuff. I think a lot of that stuff's up for grabs, because when you lose some of these things, like you lose the the ritual, the celebration, the like contact with the magic, like you lose a part of soul, like you become a zombie. And that's a shit civilization to be in. So I don't know, there's a bunch of stuff floating around with all that. Like how
Where
do you
does
balance it? Yeah.
the zombie? I missed the connection there.
So take out meaning making, like, so meaning making is connected to a lot of stuff, but like, and depend, you know, the mattering within an environment, right? There is some connection to responsibility, potentially. That's a sort of Christian ideal. There is a connection to place and people that is a felt sense. You know, there is a reciprocity that can exist with life, and what can happen when you value things that are measurable and objective with secularity, right? These kinds of
Yep.
these, like, if it's measurable and object, and you only consider what is like visible through whatever sensors you have as real, and
Yep.
other things are not real, what happens is you are ignoring a large proportion of what it is to be alive.
Yep.
And you, that is like being a zombie. You're
Yep.
living dead, right?
Yep.
So like, if you also forget the idea that you can die, which is what a lot of this does, like you are perpetual matter, and you know, like you can just keep the matter going forever because science and technology and all this stuff can do that. This turns you into a vampire, right? So all these like sort of monstrous like archetypes or whatever come from these kinds of things. uh and it, if you lose connection with those things and you're immortal, or you believe that you can be immortal, that's hell. Like it's
Yep.
just existing in the void, right?
Yep. Yep.
So this is why I think Marie Kondo and these kinds of things are they're a little path back to like, oh, I exist in this thing in some other way other than consumer of material.
Constraints. Just suddenly I
Yeah.
was thinking about how would we live a life if we knew whatever we do doesn't affect our health, and we have forever to live.
Sounds like hell.
Yeah, it feels like it would be
Right?
really libidinous.
Yeah. Then what? Nothing would matter. Nothing matters. Nothing has any meaning. It's just infinite nothingness, empty nothingness, like not a full nothingness, just this forever view where everything is flattened out throughout time and nothing has any tension or frictions. It's just this flattening of, yeah, because nothing is related to anything in that sense, because there's no constraint.
Nothing's related to anything.
Why would it be? You can do, there are no boundary conditions. This is the lack of death. Death gives you an ultimate boundary condition. It compresses like the experience of being into a scarcity, right? A finitude. And in that finitude, there is abundance, because possibility can emerge from that finitude. If there is no constraint, then there is nothing but spread and moving away from each other. And like, everything is just space then. And then what, there's nothing, so I don't know. That's my felt sense on it. There's probably plenty of philosophers who've talked about this better.
Yeah, I don't feel into that one. So I don't have
This
any
is,
comment. I do, but I don't agree with the nothing would be related. I can't feel into that one, but I can't explain why. Like, there would still be relation. There's just an absence of meaning. So things are devoid. So eventually, yeah, I guess it would be shallow. Connection would be shallow, but there would be connection. It just wouldn't have.
I mean, that's the way
veneer.
back, that understanding. So if you believe, though, that immortality is possible, and you have, and this is where we're removing death from the model, or allowing your fear of death, fear of non-existence, like of fear of lack, to be the predominant like guiding force in your life.
Yep.
That belief system, like taken to its extent, it's
empty.
void.
Yeah,
yes,
but in a nihilistic sense.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's largely what the capitalist machine sort of breeds. I think this is why a lot of people struggle with depression and feelings of meaninglessness in a predominantly capitalist structure, because there's no room, or there's room for it, but it's not spread through capitalism for like spiritual and a kind of animism, that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, I think it's secular capitalism. I mean, the secular quantity in here is or quality is more a component, like the style of understanding the world that predominates, like leads to the possibility for and you have capital as a capitalism as a operating principle within that secular mentality, meaning that like the ethics of a capital system, at least Adam Smith's ethics, are to like work hard and consume, right? Like these they're these models of like there is grace in work, and there is abundance in hard work and all of these things, and you can
and
you have
all of that for Adam Smith came from this thought that it was a moral sort of force function, because without it, people would be bad. People would be sinful. People wouldn't have anything to do. He had this whole this was the best way for people to spend their time, because in the absence of work, they would turn into these horrible beings. But then oddly, he did allow for this concept of retirement. So it was basically only for those people who figure out like how the machine works. Like you can like step off the ride because you can like step outside of it. Like there's some weird, I read a piece about this recently, and that someone's sort of interpretation of that was, okay, well then just figure out how to retire early then, so you can get out of the machine that makes everything feel empty.
Yeah. That's not really removing yourself from the machine though. That's just, it's a bypass. Like once you're out though, like then, okay, so it's then a looking back into the logics that like caused you to wish to be out of it. What is the machine and how does it relate to you, and how has being in that field and operating with the logic of that type of being.
You can't, it's really hard to do it when you're in it. You have to step outside of it. So this is where like the concept of retirement, and like earlier on when you retired from Carbon Made and being a designer in a certain way, and I kept getting upset because I was just like, you're not retired. And then it took me like years to be like, okay, I get it now. You're retiring from a certain way of being, but it's hard. It's hard when someone says that when you're still in the thing, because it's hard to see what you're doing. And it's also hard if someone around you is like, I'm leaving this thing, you're still in it. That there feels like there's a distance, like,
well, part of it is
understanding too. Like, I don't understand where you're going. What are you retiring from?
I'm leaving the faith and you're still practicing. Like, because the capital as religion or that system as religion, you're still a believer.
Yep.
And I lost faith with the thing, and then I took the off ramp. I'm like, well, how do you get out of this mentally, psychically? Like, and one of the off ramps is retirement. That's an allowable off ramp. I'm like, all right, well, I'm retired then. Like, and then, okay, what does that mean? What are you retiring from? Like, why does this pathway exist as a concept? And why does it exist in relationship to what is not being retired? And what are alternate systems? You know, how do they work at all?
All of our identity.
Yeah.
Like when you are burned out, or you trying to take a break from something, you're kind of trying to detach yourself from the thing. Retiring is just detaching your work ID from your life to see what's left of you, because you get consumed by your work so much that your identity gets wrapped into the thing, and its well-being becomes your well-being, and then retiring from that, you become you again, and it takes a while to figure out what you is. Or
and if there is not a you model that is suitable to the way that you wish to be in the world, because the existing models out there for youing yourself are like not suitable to the type of disposition you have or the work that you want to do in the world, you have to invent one. And like, it's tough because like, what the fuck do you do? And in the current state, all of the existing models are falling apart. Like, and you have access to how all of the other models work, but then it's a gigantic project. Like, okay, so Christians do it this way, and Buddhists do it this way, and capitalists do it this way, and social democracies work like this, and, you know, like hippies do this, and, you know, you can go way off the grid and just fucking check out and then have enough sustenance coming in from whatever little thing to keep yourself alive. And there are these fringes, but the internet is just gobbling up everything, right? There is no place to go that isn't online, really, right? There's little pockets left, like we're in one right now, but but that's also an opportunity, right? Like, okay, so we have the ability now, there's a new stratum of life that doesn't need to be necessarily nationally oriented or towards a specific religion that has churches, and then you're in those things are like museums now. So instead, what is a method of selfing, of creating a self that can move through identity as necessary based on what reality looks like? So I pick up this identity, right? And I'm going to use this one for a while. And then there's a practice to transition into another identity with other people doing other things. And the whole of that movement, that flow, is what the self is now. The self is flowing between like personalities and identities and character, right? And you can develop that stuff using the different practices of like an ecology of these things that is that are provided. Like they're all out there. Um, anyways, that's where I landed with this. And if that's the case, then you can find a sort of relationship to the world that matches the kinds of conditioning and interests that you have. Um, but you have to practice it every day. It's an enacted thing. It requires you to show up every morning and be like, all right, well, I'm going to figure out how the fuck all this works. It's
I
fun though.
wonder, because as you grow up, you're like, what am I? Who am I? What is this thing? And then you start learning things and you find interest of things. And I'm just fascinated by how this kid,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
nephew, goes and finds his interest. I'm
Mhm.
not that close to see, all right, he got a little bit of candy there. That's why he likes it now, right? Or
Yeah.
it doesn't really come from himself, which is kind of, I still have a hard time believing it. So just little traces of encouragement along the way that go, that's my thing. That's not really your thing. People around you reacted positive to something you did by accident or whatever it could be. Anyway, so you try to find yourself by, connecting yourself to a bunch of things. And as you grow older, you go, all right, I find myself by detaching myself from all these things that I kind of associated myself with. This is what, and then the more you grow, the more kind of independent you become. And I feel like the probably the master level would be to just be and be happy with it. Which is just remove all of these things that you learned in your core ages to Joe. I'm a designer because of, just imagine not being a designer. Like I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because it defines you. If I go, I'm an engineer, I'm like, that's not what I do. That could be you. Like I'm so terrified by the idea of maybe digital work is not my thing. I'm good at it. I'm probably good at running an agency, but what if I touch fashion and something blows up? And I go, I wasted so much of my time trying to get better at what I thought I was already good at. But imagine this thing, I touch it and I realize much, maybe 5 years from now, by the end of my 30s, I go, fuck, I should have started this earlier. Why I thought I'm a designer? I could be just so much more. Like, why I limited myself to just one thing. Then I started thinking about, all right, this online thing, what a nightmare that is. I'm not even on social media. The only thing that I'm on is on, Instagram. I'm not using Twitter, and I haven't been using it for years now. And downside, your companies are online companies and you need to be vocal, blah, blah. But is it though? So you go brands and then you go common project, right? It's a well-established brand, zero help from the online stuff. Then you have Bottega, which is also, they are not present online at all. Then you have Off-White and, these kind of brands where the main designer is just blasting the social media with tons of stuff. How can you build actually a brand where you go, where you don't necessarily need to have this strong online presence, but your voice is heard? But how is your voice heard which is basically being fine by not becoming the next biggest thing. Just figure out how you can charge a lot by producing less and keep doing it. So you need to keep maintaining the interest of those people.
Okay, like the framing here that you're working with is like you've moved from like understanding self as designer, right? Like that, I know that relationship real well. Like, and then you're moving into, okay, how can I create a consistent self, which is what a brand is, like a repeatable self, and do this offline, right? In a way that you can have a relationship with the internet that is like you can still have effect and relevance to a group of people, right?
Yeah.
But without having to like splay yourself out, like prostitute yourself effectively, like to get attention so that you can, right? Um, yeah, so this is, I mean, what I'm hearing in that is like you're trying to figure out your relationship to like work and the market, right? And like how to give yourself room to play with the kinds of art and material and all of this other stuff and still have that be a sustainable game, right? Because part of the game there is relationship to market, right? Like this, I have this too. Like anything that I make, if it doesn't have like a financial component to it, which is a reality, like finance is a reality, then it's not a useful art. It's not a useful challenge to me. So part of this is the understanding, or I think is understanding why psychologically you care at all about the brand stuff and that relationship to people. What is that? Why do you, what is, yeah.
I also think an on-ramp to that is to back up and look, like reflect back on becoming a designer. Why did you become a designer? What was that like for you and why you chose that route? So like for my like equivalent of that was, why did I go into healthcare? And I have a story. There's a narrative structure like that starts to define my identity, and it's based on, I think, some of like my childhood and how I was raised. And there's like this whole like, okay, so I did that. So for me, it's useful to sort of use that as a foil or like a pattern to see how I'm using that pattern in like the next iteration. So like if you move from design to brand, let's say, what's the move? How is it similar? How is it different? Because there's a good guess that there's certain structures or operating like like life to it that's similar, even though it is different. And that's fine. It's just looking at it just to understand what's going on.
I think the biggest thing you can accomplish in work life is a brand. You have your own brand. You can basically attach it to anything and it becomes of value by just putting your brand on it.
That's a universal.
Imagine this. So I mean, I guess a lot of things I've been thinking about for the past week with the stuff I'm spending money on online to build these tools, and there is still not a consistent brand. And Tree Drops has a brand, Webster is a new thing, but it's just so easy to sell a design with 3 Drops. Then I go, if I'm as a person can build a brand, like there are designers that have done it before. Like Tim has a brand. I believe Tobias has one.
Yeah, you do too, but it's just different. You grew it. Manufacturing versus growing is a little of what we're talking about here. Anyway, sorry, I'm jumping. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, true. But I think that's a much more worthwhile work, or how you would worthwhile use of your time, than it goes so unnoticed that building your own brand is way more important than the things that you are building. I would go and
In
build
an
bunch of
attention economy, that's true. If you're operating in an attention economy, because attention is what you're trading, right? Value in like a financial economy, I mean, again, it's been abstracted away or whatever, but right now there's like a virtual economy that is attention based. Like, and the bet that you can make is in that economy, there are methods of doing business. And one of those methods of doing business is to have, especially online, you need to maintain a consistent brand, and that you are feeding that thing all the time with content and action and whatever the hell you need to do to keep it alive. Because if it slips from notice in this big competitive landscape of attention, then you no longer exist. And that's death in the economy, right? So you can set yourself up to be to manufacture this attentional thing, right? There's a lot of people spending a lot of money doing this. You can have talent at doing it, right? Like Tobias and Tim both have a natural proclivity to doing the types of things that produce a brand. Like, they like to talk about what they're building. They like to show it off, right? They like to engage in conversation about it with people who, Tim, to a lesser degree, he just does it for fun, I think, because it's nice to share things. Tobias, I have some understanding because of the relationship to Carbon Made, like how he operates. He is gathering attention from like followers, and those followers are varying degrees of quality. Are they helping him push forward his understanding of design? Maybe, I don't know. Like, he has a lot of attention, but with that attention comes every once in a while he gets canceled, and he has to fucking manage that, right? Because he's at the top of some heap. What is it worth? Like, what do you like? Does it have any inherent value? Having all of these eyeballs on you, it has a financial value potentially, but is it going to provide any meaning? I mean, you can go find out. That's what I'm sort of poking at.
There are designers. Well, first of all, the whole designer thing is that designer actually design the lives that most of us live our life in it.
Sure.
So these buildings, these things that we wear, these things that we cook, our food, and these hotels that wherever we go, that's somebody else's imagination. So you want to just be in control of your own environment and things you use, things you wear, things you,
sure,
whatever. So you become a designer to just kind of be more in control, I guess.
That's good. Yeah.
But I'm just thinking there is a way to actually build, and with the brand, I just mean being known for what you want to be known for.
Yeah. Got it.
Part. And then it's not attention as in social media. I'm just thinking there are a couple of designers who are now on top of I believe they are living the lives that they want. They're outside of the spotlight, like the founders on Common Project. They rarely produce something new. They are very minimalistic with the way that they're living lives. They are not social media people. Then you have the Daniel from Bottega. Then you have a couple of other people where they are respected for the work that they do, and they are very, very quiet people online with nothing about them. Everything, as far as I know, being done by introvert people, so they're not social. How were they able to build a name for themselves without being too much online, blah, 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 blah? Or, because I'm thinking, all right, with 3 jobs, we tried a lot of things. With OFC, we are like trying a lot of things. It doesn't feel right we cannot be on social media and be vocal about our stuff.
Yep.
But how do we get that attention from the clients? The clients that do reach out to us, we take them on because they are exactly the right client that reached out to us, somehow magically
Yes.
they found us. But what if we just did a little bit where we get in front of the right people, but then we don't want to just mass produce content or even just go on Twitter, make
Mm-hmm.
other people's life a bit more entertaining,
Yep.
but just creating content, but get in front of the right people
So yeah,
somehow.
I think so. This makes sense, right? I think this is like, so part of it is, okay, we're recording this as a piece of media, right? And like the number of people who are going to watch this and like, like engage with this is pretty low. But if they hear something in the process of like who knows, like then they are likely to have an instinct that would be somebody to work with, right? So like here's a turning it on its head. You're not playing the fucking numbers game to try and get a bunch of trash attention that isn't worth anything. You are
Yes.
engaging honestly in conversation in good faith with people and providing like a gift, an offering to the world where you're working out something in front of them, right? You're not done, you're not polished. It's a work in progress, right? And so a lot of I think the mutual respect that happens within like a scene or within an industry or whatever are the people for whom they go and they build or they innovate or they like explore within that space for the joy or the curiosity of it, and then they share these things with other people who have that interest, like fully not packaging it in this beautiful thing that might be part of it, but like mostly just like this is where we're going and this is what I found, maybe you can use this, right? Like, and then you are showing off the way you think about the world. Like this is how I think I know any of these people because I've not spent a lot of time like building a brand or anything. My brand, such as it is, was like, what the hell is this thing? How does it work? How can you do it better? How can you do it for the people that it's supposed to serve rather than making money? And then, and when I meet these people, I'm like, this is how I do it. That thing over there that's like ripping people off, fuck that thing. And then when I say that, I go and make one that's in alignment with that. This is how you do it. It's easy to say, but here's how you do it. And then you show it. You ask people like, what do you think of this? Like, how does this work? How would you do this? Right? So this like sharing of craft, like of the mastery of possibility within like a scene, like for the joy of doing it, the byproduct can be attention and can be reputation and can be all of these things, right? Like, and you don't need to manufacture that. You can curate it, and do all that stuff if that's necessary. But like, I don't know. Anyway, this is what I found in some ways.
Yeah.
It's back to the Marie Kondo thing to a degree. Do things that you love, like with the attention that you can, with this insane, like we have these abilities to hyper focus and obsess and like care deeply, right? Like if you do that in alignment with something that will like afford like whatever is aligned with purpose, right? If this can give back or build ability in other people, or like, because the design thing that you talked about, like you look around in the world and you see, oh, everybody these things were structured, right? There are people for whom, okay, so you can then go and mimic, be one of those people. You're able to do that, and then you find yourself in the position where you can do this. And online you can move millions of people through some of these things, and it will affect their behavior and thinking and how they so then, if that's power, right, how do you exercise that power? Like, to what end? Why? For whom? right? Because you can help anybody, or you can hurt people, or you can like gain money from people, whatever the fuck you want to do, right? Like there is an instantiation of using this power in an artful way. Like I am going to do this because I know that this will funnel people towards something. And if I am funneling people towards something, or if I am engaging them and helping to understand that they're being funneled, like there's a consciousness, there are ways to do this, like that can be in alignment with a meaning making apparatus in yourself, right? And so like squaring all that to create a work where you are a conduit rather than the person who needs credit. This is where I ended up. Like, okay, so like this skill of design is an invisible skill when done artfully, right? It is something that enables people to be in the world in ways that they couldn't if they had to do it themselves, right? You're an in-betweener. You are you are creating infrastructure to help people express or live in a different way. So like what is the art of that? And if you focus on the art of that, the other people who care about the art of that will just be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, because you're pushing the craft, not because you can gain from it, but because the pushing of the craft is understanding the world. And that fucking thing is worth more than anything. And the pushing of the craft needs to be in alignment with helping people, like, and thinking deeply about what it means to help people and how some of your actions are going to fuck up a bunch of people and how does that work, and how do you find other craftspeople to build things together so that you can balance what you're building, right, so that it can be a good one, because you can't build these things by yourself. You need to be pushing your skills, you need to be pushing how you see the world. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm a rampage.
Where did the power come from? I missed the on-ramp there.
These skills, the ability to, we've talked about this before, like having an understanding of psychology and of relationship and information flow and all of these things, and being able to, through process and skill, be able to manipulate these things.
Yeah, so an
like you can,
understanding of the nature of things and the ability to manipulate these things.
and if you have the ability to manipulate, if you can, you can you start to figure out that manipulation is money, and money affords you the ability to manipulate more. What is the nature of that manipulation? That is power, right? You are in possession of like a skill or an affordance or the privilege, or however you want to look at it, of the ability to shape parts of culture and society and people's interactions and health and all of these. Like, okay, what do you do with that? Like, how do you do with that? Like, who do you talk to about the use of this thing, right? um yeah.
If living forever is hell, and living what we live now, meaning we are not really sure where we are going, is the in between. Probably the perfect place to be is probably not 100% freedom of whatever you want to do whenever you want to do. Probably you go, I'm here at a time doing this, and I'll be this by this age, and you know it for sure, and you are just putting in the daily work to get there. That would probably be a very peaceful way of living
You
versus
know for
what,
sure. You're certain. You know what's going
because
to happen.
you know it's gonna happen, and all you need to do is just doing what you're doing now. So you're just treating it as a project, right? Project is a hell when we go week after week. You know, maybe we reach that goal at the end of the project. The whole agile thing, like we have it
Yeah.
in the word of product, where you go. Agile is the worst thing that has ever happened. Where you go, it's a step towards progress, but it's not the answer. And there's scrum masters, and this is insane. But you go week after week, you recap. You're like, all right, what's been done? All right, no worries. So this week we're gonna work on this, and just repeat it forever. And that's pretty much what hell looks like. But then you go into a sprint way of planning work, where you go, all right, this is where we want to end up in 2 months. You plan the work, you estimate it, and you know exactly where the milestones are, when the reviews are, or whatever. Then you just peacefully go through the timelines, right? There is no stress. You know, if you just work this amount of hours per day, you'll get there. It's just measured. And because you have the constraint of time, you don't go nuts in exploring things. You know, you need to find an answer. It won't be the best answer, but it would be the answer to get you to the next point, because that other thing starts. In life, if we just did that, that would have been such a calm way of living, where you go, all right, I mean, I know I want to start this thing by this time. um, I want to, let's say, release these products by this time. You actually do it. I guess it's just designing your own life. If you actually plan your own life, which is very doable, you probably minimize stress by a lot. You're going to remove a lot of stuff because you go, I cannot do everything. So you just put some constraints here. Um, Take something in, take something out. Problem is, like, a lot of us do the project management part really, really well, but the life management part really, really poorly. So you go, one day I'll probably do it. And that's just probably not a happy life. I'm we wear black clothes and we try to limit all of the decisions and, you know, um,
Yeah. I mean,
One
so
of the interesting things that you just were talking about, Farzad, was the like elimination of time that kept coming up. I don't know if you heard that, Dave. If we just remove
I'm
time,
obsessed with time. Yeah. From
yeah,
a very young age. Because I always thought, let's take all of the risk in the beginning. Also, getting married was part of that too, where you, at a young age, you kind of maximize all of different type of experiences. So by the time that you start your 30s, you've done most things. So when you want to do it seriously, you've done the trial period in your 20s. Um, and I thought, um, your power is very, very limited during your 20s and early, even before 20s. You can push yourself really, really hard. You can probably break yourself and get PTSD, but it's still worth it because you've been able to unbox yourself to a degree where you go, all right, I've unlocked my potential in a way that I know what I can go for if I push myself and if I think outside of what other people's limitations are. But all of this is just time. I always like where you go, by 27, I want to have this. By 33, I want to be there. By 36, I want to be here. By 40, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, I just want to live life a bit more planned than just by years and rough monthly plans. I want to plan my work, my life the same way that I'm planning my work. I'm planning my team's work really down to the detail.
what are the downsides of this thinking?
I think
What do
it's
you
a good.
lose?
I lose the stress because not knowing is the stressful part about, because you
What
go
positive
too
things do
ambitious.
you lose?
Well, again, so we think luxury is freedom of doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That's the curse. once you
Yeah,
reach there,
there's two sides of these things. Yeah.
you should have the option of, all right, today I won't. But that discipline is what makes you live a happy life. Like I've been watching these people where you go, they wake up, they repeat the same thing, and then go to the same work, do the exact same tasks at work. They're not doing
Yeah.
any creative work, so it's just like they're repeating things. Zombie life, as I thought. But now I'm thinking they're probably living a much happier life than I do.
Who knows?
Let's say because they always know where they are, and what they are
Why?
doing.
I mean, that's an illusion. Like they have a sensor network that lets them believe that they are where they think they are, right? But what if that reality comes unglued and your sensors are broken? Like, what if, so you know that you go in and you're doing these tasks, but a robot is also doing these things behind the scene and you are becoming
Yeah.
unnecessary, but you don't know because you're not connected to reality. You are connected to a machine that is offering you a simulation of reality. And then you're just anxious all the fucking time because you don't know what is actually happening and you don't know how to deal with the stress of not knowing. This is how I see these people. A lot of them, not all of them.
I think, wait, this robot life is actually what creative people need in order to live a happy life. Because you need to have a consistent working hours to just produce.
I mean, if production is valuable.
It's just for the sake of getting things out, right? I think
that for sure, yes. I think that,
yeah.
yeah, I think that there are different relationships to getting things out though. Like, what are you trying to get things out towards, right? Are you using it as a method for exploring the world? Are you using it for a method of creating byproduct that is sellable on the market? Like, what is the relationship that you have to this gift of getting things out?
Living in my own world. Okay, think of it like this. So digitally, anything that we spend a lot of time using, we build our own version of it. And then we are control of the processes that the products are built, right? So we made one for analytics, we made one for blogging, and then road mapping, the planning one. Then to the offline world, like for the past, 5 months or whatever, I've been trying to get just to make my own clothes.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking about furnitures and all these things. And I think as a designer, it would just be a much more fulfilling life where you have all of these different playgrounds where you go and add something to it. You have
so there's an exercise here, like a mental exercise. Take this to the ultimate conclusion. You can design everything that you want in exactly the ways that you want to be exactly how it is. So there's no friction. Then what? There's no friction. There's nothing. There's nothingness. There's no constraint. Like the constraint, you just have to make another piece of the world conform to what your worldview is, and another piece and another piece. There's no end to this. This is where I came. I'm like, well, what then? Like, why do this? Because there's perfection at the end? Control?
Joy of you. There is a joy in it.
Okay.
It depends if you are using your own craft and you go, there are just so much things that we need to do to make it better. Or you're actually using it and you go, I enjoy this. There is a zen to this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think I ever, which is probably a problem because, or maybe not, I haven't figured out this whole marketing thing, and we've been hiring people to work on this with us for the past 4 months now. And we're still figuring things out. But it's not, you're not producing products for other people, really. You're just trying to solve the problem you have the best way possible. And then you put it out and you see, other people are feeling the same way.
Yeah. I think that's a viable way of doing it. Sure. But the sharing part of it and the development beyond the initial impulse, right? Like, this is where involving a community like allows you to go much further in your practice. Like, this is where I've landed. You can build these things and they can solve your immediate problem, but there is there are adjacent problems around your specific instance, right? Because the way that you see the world is very particular, right? And other people may conform to that worldview, and that's nice. But the likelihood that, like, so if you can solve your problems using tooling and that affords you a better way of living, then the next logical step is give other people the power to do that so that they can afford a better living, right? So, like, how can you remove yourself over and over from the process to expand the scope of what is possible to build with your mentality? This is how I've been, like, how can you fall further into the background, offering larger and more complex, like, solutions into the world, right? That afford agency within your user base rather than them having to conform. They have like well-designed agency to operate in the world in a way that they couldn't without your help, right? So, like, there's this virtuous cycle that can keep you moving, because if you continue to solve your own problems, those will never end. You can just move your problems out into a larger sphere, and then you end up with a relationship with these people that they help you build it. Like, you can do it as a community, as a group, right? And then you can spread the responsibility, which allows your genius to rise to the surface because other people are picking up what they can do, right? And so you get the extent of everybody being able to lift their part of the thing so that you don't have to fucking willpower it into existence every time. There is that initial act, though, the planting of the seed of the idea, but then how do you grow it in a way that is in alignment with the world? This is good branding, right? Like, providing an area so that the true expression of something can come forth, right? Rather than saying, this is a thing and I name you this, right? And you will conform to the name that I give you. It's like creating an environment with other people who have a similar understanding, and then a name emerges forth and you say, that's your name, that's who you are, right? This is the same thing with the kid. Like, it's how do you become into the thing that you are becoming into that thing, right? And the name is chosen based on, like, you know, what it is to the people that are helping create it. Anyways, this is where I'm moving with my design practice.
This brings us to the perfect place to show you where I've been stuck for the past 4 years.
Cool. I like how this is a culmination to where you've been stuck for that.
I'm getting more coffee then.
So the movement here is designing for yourself, from designing for yourself to designing for other people to be their own designers.
That's one logic, like that can help you. I think that's an on-ramp to understand a style of design that is more ecological, like the role of the designer within the creation of something, like having the designer be the sole person in charge, like, you know, at the lead of something is like, it's a fragility, right? Like one mind shouldn't be creating things of this complexity. It doesn't make any sense. How can that one mind help take the worldview of a group of people and help express it because that mind is trained in pattern, right? But the pattern is flowing through that mind, you know, and in relation to other minds in a group, it's conversational, it's adaptive, it's it's related, and the other minds within that group are sensors into the network of where that thing, and it's taking it. I mean, and design thinking works this way anyway. You're doing user interviews and all this other stuff, but the incentive structure is around like creating a seamless experience for a user so that they can be funneled through a system to extract value most of the time, right? Like,
Yeah.
so that's a pipeline, that's a machine. Like, how do you do something that's more like a garden, more like a jungle, that's like, or, you know, like how it is in an environment and it is responding to the environment, and you're helping craft and shape and garden, and, you know, like, oh, this path naturally occurred, let's put up some stuff around it, right? Like, let's make it more legible, or let's add a friction here because that will help produce a new bit of energy, these kinds of things. So I don't know, I'm pretty abstract with all this stuff.
Yeah.
Anyhow, let's look at your things.
Yeah, shit. Shit, because all right, remember we've gone over roadmap a couple of times.
Yeah.
And now we have 3. And for each, we are experimenting with a new kind of, not launch strategy, but just pricing model, or however we're going to fund this project. And then we're going to move into and complement being the entry point to that whole offline design work. But first, the online stuff, and the biggest one, roadmap, but it's connected to how to build a product and sell it without being too vocal about what you're doing all the time, and that whole thing. The marketing strategy that actually doesn't require you to speak to everybody, meaning niching the product as much as possible, narrowing down and then have it within our reach. So we looked through, roadmap is 4 or 5 years old. We had never done any marketing other than 2 product launches that we have done. 80% of our paying customers, we went through a lot of ups and downs, but I think currently the 80% of our paying customers are agencies or studios, and all designers, which makes sense. Engineers won't be able to use this type of project management tool because their work is very difficult to foresee. Bugs show up, that changes the entire thing, right? The roadmap of work. But with designers, you can actually go and dictate how much time you would like to put on different part of the design project. Exploration, experimentation, presentation, and whatever. You can box it all in great. So roadmap does that really well. We never touched the design of roadmap for the past 4 years. It's always been the same way as we had it from the beginning of the work. Our kind of way of solving the problem of managing a remote team and transparently sharing who's working on what, and sharing our plans with the client so they can track the progress. So we don't need to keep reassure them that you're on the right track. This is how it feels like. It's uncertain right now. we're gonna move into the certainty or kind of knowing what we are doing a bit later. But the part that we are getting into is, I guess it's not much of a product review, because I can actually share my screen and show you some of the stuff that we have currently while we made some of these decisions. Why the V2 is going to look like the way it is, and why we're spending 3 months rebuilding the whole thing. Then the pricing model that we have in mind for it, which is a little bit different than what we've done in the past. And I think the biggest part was we try to sell the product as most startups do. You go, no, this is a project management tool. Any company could actually use it, but actually not you. And then the older the product gets, you go, actually not you too. That's probably not great for you too. So you start narrowing down a group of customers that are actually your ideal customers.
Yep.
Then we ended up with this, which is, you remember this. So this is basically a roadmap. On top, you have all of your members. Clicking on avatars will show you their schedules, your to-date tasks, all of the company teams. So designers, developers, you can see their schedules. Then you have the projects, and you can see the project progress in each project, and so on. Nothing has changed much since our last call 3 years ago on this one.
Yep.
The part after kind of talking to all of the customers, we realized this is designed for managers, because it shows you everything that's going on in the company, not just my stuff, right? As a member, I don't care about everybody else's schedules. I can look at them whenever I want to. So we made this, where you go, here's my today tasks and milestones this week, and all of the notifications related to these tasks, my today stuff, everything else doesn't matter. They're streamed. And my stuff is basically my projects. There's nothing else in here. You can go into a project, view the timelines, see what needs to be done, where the milestones are by just clicking on a date. And you can group the tasks. You go, these need to be things that run throughout the entire project. So not features, but more as in a group. This is all design, or this is all development, or this is all branding. They run throughout the project, but they do it in parallel. And before kind of roadmap, there were no modern take on Gantt charts. So you had these Google Excel sheets, or you had these, I think we were probably the first one that went with the draggable timelines and moving them around, blah, blah. Once we're getting, a lot of other companies getting too inspired by us, and this concept gets implemented in everybody else's products, we started kind of struggling with what's actually the unique value of this product. We are not offering all of these other views. We don't have a Kanban board. We don't have a to-do list. We believe time is in the center of everything you do. So that's the only way for you to prioritize tasks. We don't let you tag stuff. There's a lot of stuff we don't do. There is a reason behind it, because we just don't believe that's the right way of doing the work. And for us, we are not building a tool that gives you all of these flexibility. We're building a tool that gives you the answer, the process. It's very kind of opinionated process based. And over the past, since basically we started 3 jobs, so it's been 1.5 years now. Other studios and agencies reached out and I've been jumping on these calls with them just to figure out why these amazing design agencies are not earning as much money as they should. They are still charging hourly. They are still micromanaging their members. They're still not negotiating well with the clients, blah, blah, blah. And 80% of the people that are actually paying for roadmap are actually agencies. And we are still sticking to having this kind of constraints in the features that we are providing to make sure that people are kind of following the same principles that we've been fine-tuning over the past 11 years of running an agency to make the most with the less resources that they have. And for the V2, we are thinking about actually, instead of doing a SaaS subscription model, we make the tool as a secondary and we actually sell. I wonder what we call it, a course or a community where we go, we onboard agencies to the product. We run them through, here's how you would run an agency. Here's all of the things that you need to do, blah, blah. This tool comes with it. And it costs more than all the other SaaS solutions. It's not a member-based pricing as other SaaS solutions. It's a fixed monthly fee to be part of this for the product you would be using. You would be part of a smaller group of other agencies that are using it. We share knowledge. And we walk you through how we make, we do the same projects you do, but we are making 6-figure and 7-figure from them. Pros and cons to that pricing model. We have 2 paths to this. Option 1, we onboard clients, we onboard agencies, we close the signups because there is no value of creating even the best onboarding experience of roadmap. The roadmap, the value of it is not the tool, but in the way of the work for agencies that actually works. This we need to communicate on a call, walk them through it. So they would, option 1 is basically we do the call with them. We understand how they are running their agencies, and there are most agencies and more studios now and more are popping up because of tools like Dribble and blah blah. We educate them on how they can start hiring, manage remotely, manage clients remotely, go international, blah blah. There is no fee. They would get access to these kind of materials that we hopefully will write. They get invited to this group of agencies in their same size, and we can do our calls. And they would just pay a premium price monthly to be using the product. We would keep in touch with them to see how they're progressing and improve their well-being through the product by probably adding features to it so it works. Option 2, we do full-blown course, PDFs, webinars, very time-consuming from my side of things, as I'm basically selling how I did 3 jobs, and I productized it with roadmap.
Yeah. I mean, if that logic is where the value is, then replicating that logic so that other people can do it, you're assuming that value will pay out for other people. And then if there are, if you can give them the most simplified version of the principles and then a product that helps them enact the principles, right? And then a community of practice where they can compare notes and talk about tips and tricks, and they can have a cohort of other people who are engaging in similar types of work. The value may be there above anything else, right? Because if you can find other people who are playing in the same like field that you are, and you can compare notes, like your life is a lot better. It's more fun. So there's a bunch of different value points in this. Yeah, the educational aspect of this, like there's the actual knowledge that you're getting across, and then there is the mechanism of dispersal of that knowledge, right? So I'm thinking from my perspective, okay, I'm trying to start an agency. I know that there are better or worse ways. Maybe I've run across your thinking, and I'm like, okay, I see all these tools, but I don't know what the fuck to do with this or anything, right? Like, and how do I build it into my existing process? So the value, the value that you're advertising is you're running an agency. You could run that agency better. You could up your margins. And the way to go about doing this is a style of running it. And I can teach you that style. And learning this style is better with others so that you're not having to do everything yourself, right? Like the ideal scenario here is that you give them a framework to play within, and then they can sort of teach you how they're learning this thing. There's a cooperative environment. You don't have to provide everything for everybody, right? Like, because these people are self-starters anyway, they should be able to provide some of the structure themselves. Anyways, this is the stuff that's popping up here. But generally, I think that the ethos layer that you're talking about as a way to engage people in using the app, like having a game that helps them realize the value of the app and realize it with other people, will reinforce the usage of the product, right? And then ideally that they'll testimonials and talk, also a media, like share how you're using the thing, put it on YouTube, share in the community, whatever the hell it is, so that you end up with a library of people who are, I mean, this is like what Notion does, these kinds of things. Anyways, that's a bunch of stuff that's popping up, but the general thesis is good, I think, like, because roadmap is an extension of a style of management. So sell the style of management. And then you're into the constraint of what are the most clever ways of doing this that involve community. Like, what are so that you don't have to do all of the work all the time, because that's otherwise it's not a feasible business if that's the case. Like, yeah, anyways, that's some stuff that's popping up.
It's also helping people save time. Like, don't worry about the best way to do it. I'm going to tell you, or I'm going to tell you a way to do it that you can use so that you can get to work. Like, figuring out how to work, like you're offering an on-ramp to.
Yeah.
So I want to start an agency, but like it takes so much trial and error, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And you're offering, if you're interested in my way, and here's my way, and however that's communicated, I'll show you how to do it, and then you can get to work. And you can customize it from there. Like my thing is a jumping off point. Like it's like having the shoulders of giants, standing on the shoulders of giants, so people can stand on your shoulders to build the next thing. So the expectation would be that they're not just using it whole cloth, but they're able to build from it.
Yeah.
Their businesses will likely differ from exactly what you've done, but that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like, I mean, there are a bunch of different pricing models on this too. Like you can add a friction in price up front and then offer the idea that like, you're putting together a cohort of 5 people and then they go through it at the same time. Like looking at how Seth Godin does a lot of this stuff is probably smart. He is like a master, Seth Godin.
He has cohorts?
Yeah, he does so much. I mean, most of his stuff is teaching, creating. Like he has an alt MBA program, he has a podcasting program, he has like a writing program, and most of these things are just getting people together who are interested in like doing a specific craft or style of something, and then helping them teach each other. And he just provides the basic course materials and the space and environment for them to do this. And like there are people around to help the community move. It's lively, right? If you need to talk to somebody, there's somebody there, right? Like there's a structure, it's a space. You're providing some place where people can interact with each other. And for a lot of these things, so the writing program, I have a friend who's going through it. Like it's like you have to come. There's like a set of rules. We talked about this with the your sort of knowledge network sharing. Every day you come and you post something, right? And like that's the rules of the game. And then when you have a cohort that you're doing this with, like you have an audience that can give you feedback that isn't the general public, right? And you're paying him for like putting together this space and bringing people together, right? There's not really any tooling. It's like a message board, right? But there are people there who are interested in the same things you are and in learning in the same way. And then there's a game structure that's like here's the minimum requirement to participate in this thing. You have to post X things every day, and if you don't, then you're not part of the thing, right? So there's a bunch of different rules like this. But generally, like for people who are trying to study, and you can think about it educationally like this, you are doing practice and study on how to be a better agency or a better whatever, like how to learn the craft of this thing. And like you can provide them tooling through you've done this practice for years and years and years. And like, here's what I've learned, and here's an environment to share notes and learn together or whatever. So plus you get lifelong users of Roadmap if this works.
How would it be structured? So they could either pay an upfront price beginning and then pay a monthly fee, or they would actually just pay a premium yearly. I mean, it's a month, but monthly wouldn't work because you would need this to go for at least 6 months so you actually see what's happening. Whereas as a monthly billing for this thing is gonna be a bit difficult.
So it takes 6 months before the magic kicks in?
I think you need to actually execute this on a project. So depending on your work, and I would actually I'm happily kind of advising on specific client project just for fun. Like let's just negotiate together on this client work, and then here's a price that you should sell this client, and let me because I remember Andrew did it for me once.
Yeah.
And my mind went, because I'm trying to make sense of the numbers, and he goes, no, just here, like, what do you think? Like, let's just figure out a number, and then blah blah blah, and then we wrote it down, and we saying to the client, and they're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, there is no science to this. It's just basically confidence and actually delivering and understanding what that customer's budget basically is and the value of the work. And then once you understand how he
that's a
sees
class you're describing right now. Like that's part of what you're offering. Like these little exercises that people can do together, Like, so back to the pricing though. I mean, so that's one aspect. Like, how do you get them interacting with the types of things that they will be doing so that they can be prepared to utilize this thing? There's a mindset that you're curating, right? And there's a bunch of little things that you need to know, right? So this is the curriculum, however you want to format it. Like, so I mean, you can test this curriculum with some people who are interested in doing it and then just learn from that test, right? Like, okay, it takes about X long to get somebody to get into the mental model, right? And then, because it's iterative with this, like you could go out with what you think works and try to put together a cohort or whatever, and that might be fine. But doing it from the ground up, just putting together the minimum like program that you think can get people like the least amount of information, that, and then testing it with a cohort that's agreed to do it, you can see where the uptake, I mean, there's a bunch of probably information on how classes and stuff work. I have less of an understanding of this, but like there's probably like a generally, like it takes this long for people, this many people drop off, right? You know, after a month they get the mental model, or after 2 weeks, and you can drive that down somehow by creating different types of things. And there's probably a pricing structure that it's like a minimum X commitment, and that price is a friction, so that like it's a way of showing that you're serious. Like, and there's a sunk cost part of it, that like if you spend the money, you're more likely to do the thing. That whole mentality, whether or not that works in practice, I don't know. You'd have to play with it. But like, say it's $500 or $1,000 or $5,000, depending on what you can get it to and where the value is. And people will come in and they know they're getting a cohort, and they know they're getting tooling, and they know that they're going to come away with a better understanding of how to run their business. That's worth a lot of money, potentially, right? And if you're doing your teaching well, they don't need you as a teacher anymore, because you've given them everything they need to operate. So that's a high value proposition. And then if you've trained them on this software in the process of doing it, there's a monthly cost to keep the software running, because you're offering them a service, right? You could bundle that into the initial price, and they get a year or two, like, you know, and then if they're continuing to use it, then they'll just continue to, they'll pay you, right? Maybe there's refresher courses and all this other stuff. But yeah, I don't know, this initial, I think that there can be an initial price offering, and you have people who are like, something about that pricing can like show a seriousness to the endeavor of working in this way, right? I don't know if any of that helps at all.
Are the prices are fixed? Because I'm thinking different things for different agencies. So I was talking to this studio. They're bigger than us in terms of number. They are making less than us in terms of revenue, and in terms of not revenue, in terms of profit. They are making more than us, but they are not keeping as much. Is it fair to go fixed for everybody, or I'm actually running another consultancy agency with this tool? Two things just mentally. One, it's just very sad for me to owning yet another, like I wasn't able to build a tool that just can be a tool that makes money from it. I'm actually need to, because it's not really money, earning money while I'm sleeping, as the idea of SaaS is. This is actually, I'm running a consultancy, but I learned how to do agencies with the client, and then now what I'm learning, I build this, and then now I'm teaching this to other people to build their own agencies, but everything is so dependent on me. So I'm not making my life easier, but then putting that aside, for the, just, I had to get that out. For the pricing of this, does it have to depend on the size of the agency? Like how you see in some of the subscription, in some of the like, analytical tools, where they go, how much is your revenue? Then the price that you would pay for the tool is, there is no more cost. Like for them, it costs the same for the person providing the tool, but they go, yeah, and you see it in, with Stripe analytical tool everywhere.
I mean, that's
agency based, or does it have to be whatever?
I mean, it all depends on the business here. So like where the actual like value is coming in. So if you're trying to automate something here, like if you're trying to save them time, right? By processing something, or, like offering them insight into the world, right? Like this is where the automation would come in, like where, I don't know, you're doing something that like you're taking in data from another system, and you're processing it into something that would be very hard for them to do manually, like this is where these things are good to make money on while you're sleeping now. So, because the tooling stuff, it's harder and harder to make direct money on that because there are so many competitive options, right? Like,
Sure.
so the value proposition, you can have a semi-commodified like course thing where you have to do an initial like amount of the teaching or whatever it is. But if you get that stuff into a format that it's workable, then you can just resell that format endlessly, right? Like, and if you get the cohorts, but you have to act out the cohorts, you're going to have to do work, right? Like, there's no way without you like fully engaging with the thing. If you have the knowledge on how to use this and it doesn't teach itself, then you got to teach it. That's just how it fucking works. So, but once you do the teaching and you've recorded a like repeatable path, like one of the things in here is that can you create new teachers? Can you make other people who teach this for you, right?
Eventually.
Like, you do teacher training, right? So like, and the more you do of this, the less hands-on you need to be. This is, again, the ethos of a good teacher is that you get rid of yourself in the teaching process, right? Like, you have offloaded everything that you know into a system and then it can run itself. But this takes time, this takes effort. Like, the tool is just what you're finding, or what I'm hearing you're finding, is the tool is an extension of how you practiced your agency work. And so the actual product here is so think of it as getting things done. The GT
of Farzad is basically what it is.
Yes, but it can, I mean, take your name out of it. Like, it's not you. It's an idea on how the world can work.
Abstraction of him, right?
Yes,
like it comes from him, but the second you turn it into some objective thing, it's no longer Farzad. I mean, you can put his name on it, but yeah.
So that GTD like process, getting things done. Do you know about this, Farzad? Yeah. No. Yeah. So
because it's actually a personal way of working versus this would be a more team. Do you believe that too? Or do you think get things done actually works in a team?
I don't care. It might not. It doesn't matter. I'm pointing more to how he built it. It's got all of these like sort of I went and listened to him talk about some stuff or whatever. The guy who founded it, Dean something, I don't remember his name.
David Allen?
David Allen, yeah. And he's basically pulling like from a bunch of Buddhist principles and then put it into a system that is workable, and it's mostly individual, right? You're managing this enormous workload, and then it's teachable. And so he taught it, and then he taught people to teach it because it's a pattern that works in the world. And then people made software on top of it, right? You just sort of went the other way around. You learned it, you maybe talked about it, but you built yourself software, and then you offered the software without the teaching, right? And what you're finding now is that the teaching is necessary. But David Allen made a goddamn fortune from this. Like, and it spread all over the place because you have people who are like, for whom it worked really well. Your version of this is more team oriented, which means that like the teaching needs to be team oriented. Like, there's a bunch of things that you can do, exercises that you get people together, and then they run one of these things in a project over a few weeks. And they get to be with a bunch of people who are running a project, which feels good, and then they can take that back to their team or whatever. So like, if you have a single like member who is going to be the evangelist for this, or you could, try to get a whole team involved in one of these things. And if it's fun enough, you can get them all on board, right? But you've got to make this thing pretty enjoyable. So anyways, it's all some stuff in there.
Yeah, a couple of things that I'm thinking about is if people are coming to the course with a project in mind, or if they are helped to make up the project, or they bringing it with them, so they're just kind of ready to go, but they need to be told how to work it. And I think there's opportunity to build in, so you have like probably pre-recorded sort of sessions, and then couple that with more interactive synchronous discussion. And those are facilitated probably in the beginning by you. And then there's probably add-on structures for as long as you're involved, where if people want to consult with you one-on-one, you're available as part of the curriculum at like key points, including like I'll help you negotiate rates with clients, like whatever that is, like taking like a detailed look at what they're doing. All of that you can remove yourself from over time as other people become well versed in the program.
You have teacher training or whatever it is that you can offer in these kinds of things. And then,
but I think a lot of it is, like Dave is saying, is group focused. So like giving the cohort time to explain to each other, based on what we learned in the session, I'm going to implement it like this, and they're like round robin. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it that way. And they can sort of, and this is where having a moderator there, which is probably you in the beginning, of like, okay, why are you doing it that way? I don't think that's the best way. Like, let's talk about the approach. So some amount of that. I had something else for another like group session. Yeah, I mean, you're sharing your progress along the way and challenges and successes so that everyone's learning from it. So you don't have to do all the work, but you can just, because you are wise in the approach, you can sort of step in as people are talking to share what resonates with you with what they're doing versus what doesn't seem so good. And it's all discussion.
And if you want to build a fucking brand, you get a bunch of people who now understand the complexity of your thought and the elegance of your thought and get to go and enact it. And then they tell people, Farzad taught me this. This is why my company is working better. That's a good brand. Just saying.
What's the, to make this actionable, when you're running an agency, your time is worth a lot. So a few weeks could fund an entire year almost. But then with this thing getting it off the ground, given now that we understand just building things for everybody is not the way, and letting people to sign up and become a customer of this thing is not the right way of building, especially if you're bootstrapping. So niching means close signups, individual onboarding, personal experience. That's a luxury of SaaS. But what I'm saying is fair both ways, meaning I'm spending a lot of time and they have the money and they would see it worthwhile. Throwing in a number. Agencies usually make from 20, a good small studios make from, good freelancers and studios make 20 plus.
What would you pay for this? You've got a team. I mean, what, like you're running an agency that's like getting by or whatever. I mean, if you're looking at people who already have existing agencies or people who are starting agencies, like people who already have like deal flow effectively, right? Like this is the customer. Like, so they already have a problem. They're looking to solve it. Is this who the general customer is, you think?
Yeah, I guess there are agencies, they can be around for 8 years, 9 years, or similar to 3Jobs, but are still stuck into the traditional way of running an agency, which is hourly rate, people sitting in an office, high
So they're
rates.
like thousands and thousands of these, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good first, all right. So you kind of know where their friction points are. You've gone through them, right? And you can speak to them directly. What is this worth to them? Like, what is the appropriate friction to get them to use it, right? Like, because there's also a mental quality to this, right? Like, you're offering them the ability to make every dollar that they're making go further, right? All of these kinds of things. So, like, and you believe in the product that you're offering, right? And they have what does it feel? Where does it feel right? Like you would come to this thing and be like, that's the price, I'd pay that. I would easily pay that. Like that's how I feel into the pricing.
Is there an upfront payment with the monthly cost, or is it probably better? What's a good starting point pricing for this, just to get this off? So upfront payment with the monthly billing for the tool, or just a premium monthly billing, which is not comparable to, 49 to 99 per month kind of a thing.
So I think if there is an event aspect to this, there is a learning period, and that learning, let's call it a month for whatever reason, right? So let's take that. They are going to interact with each other for a month. Like, you have to figure out what the cohort's going to be, or if they can go through this thing by themselves. I think the cohort model makes more sense because you'll get better uptick. You'll get people teaching each other, right? You're more likely to have subscribers to the product out of that funnel, right? So that's assuming a lot, though, that you're creating a course that is cohort based. I think that like you're doing matching too of the cohort. Like depending on demand, this is difficult. Like, can you get 5 people across multiple organizations to come together and do this within a period of time? Is there enough demand to do that? Whatever, right? But again, idealize. There's a lot of fucking factors here. Like some like $500 up front, like for somebody to go through one of these things, $4.99, whatever it is, or however that pricing works. And they are getting a month's worth of interaction and learning for that amount of money. That's a small amount of money, but that's in the grand scheme, but that's a good test ground to see where the value proposition is. And then likely you can either bundle in like a year of service on Roadmap or whatever else you're offering. There's other bundleable, like I think you can find other things. This course and this other thing, you can make agreements with people, and then that price becomes more and more bundled and higher value. But to start, that's a decent friction. Then you get something down the road. I don't know. That's what feels right to me. But yeah, I mean, the jumping off point. Because I think the monthly thing isn't in alignment with what you're trying to get them to do. Like, if you want them to actually onboard this mentality and use it, like there is an intense period of learning or playing together, right? So that you get the feeling of what it can offer you, right? And then if you have that feeling and it actually works, they will pay you whatever. It doesn't matter. Like they'll pay you forever if the tools are working and the community is giving them value. It's fine.
I think that,
but yeah.
Sketching out the curriculum of like what this could look like and like the structure would help with thinking about pricing and like,
yes,
because there's probably different models too, where certain people will only pay for 6 months, and like other people will opt for the year long, and other people will opt for like different structures within that, depending on how high touch they want, right?
Yeah.
You get a certain amount of like things if you like there's like a pro model versus like a basic model. So there's lots of different, like, so that people can sort of self-select into the learning opportunity that they want.
Yeah, there are a bunch of people who design these courses. Yeah. Like this is becoming a big thing now that you could talk to. I mean, I only have a cursory understanding. I don't really take courses, so I don't know. I mean, I dropped out of school, so this is like just I mean, I can see myself in the position being like in my 20s, right? Even 30s or whatever, somewhere in that range. I've been running this business and like, I'm just in the fucking flow of I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like I've tried all these things, but like I need a shakeup, right? And then you come along and you're like, spend time with other people who are doing this thing, like, and I'll teach you how to do this. I'm like, fucking $500? Yeah, no problem. Like, or whatever that number is. Or like, there's also a world in which if I am older, and like the world is, I just don't know how to see the world anymore, and you're offering me a better way. $3,500, no goddamn problem. I want to be able to do my business better, and the upsides are enormous. So, but what are you offering there? Like what is the kind of thing? Like for me personally, if I'm in and amongst a bunch of people with like active ways of doing things to learn, like I'd love that, right? Um, and if there's tooling that I think is pretty cool to like, but it's hands-on because these people like to do stuff. I think, I don't know. This is where understanding that you have a much better understanding. And then there are probably these course type people who do course design. They're everywhere. Um, yeah, poking them and asking them like, how would you think about this? What are the shortcuts to making this stuff? There's all the software platforms that do this. I think you can hack together something pretty quickly, and then yeah.
Before I go nuts in this,
Yeah.
is this really the only valuable way to make make money from this tool?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when you started talking there, like, why are you doing this? What's the goal here?
Yeah.
Like, take a step back now. What's the motivation behind it? Is that you're trying to figure out what to do with it? Yeah.
It's been stuck for 4 years. I mean, SaaS is not what it used to be.
No.
It's so easy
It's
to
so
build
easy. Yep.
solutions now.
Yeah. Like spin these up real quick. Yep.
Onboardings are useless now. Like there is no, regardless of how amazing your tool is, it will be replaced by another tool if there is not a connection with your tool. And I think the connection comes from the people that made the product. But then great, you know us, and then we were thinking about marketing the product. You can see how we are building it, blah, blah, blah. But it's still not, it's not Basecamp. I mean, what they did was basically which has nothing to do with the actual product. Basically, they were just preaching how companies should be built. And I've been kind of forcing myself into conversations where I go, please just fucking let me negotiate a client with you. Just drop all of your prices, however you do it. Give me one client, give me one meeting with your client. I can show you what you can do. Then why am I doing it? Because I'm so interested in it now. So I would do it. Then I have roadmap. Then I keep showing roadmap to other people, and then I go, but how do you use it? But I'm like, oh, that's what it is. Like the problem is they get the product, but then like I was in this call and I really respect that design studio, and they asked me a couple of times, and among a bunch of other customers, they keep asking me why I never realized it. They go, how are you using it? I'm like, how am I using it? It's simple. Like you put constraints on your project, there are phases, blah, blah, blah. You commit to the client, and then you don't talk about a time when you're selling the project. You talk about the value of it. I could probably make money from this, but it wouldn't be enough to make it worthwhile for me. But then there I have a SaaS product that I probably spend more than, I don't know, 300K or something on it over the course of 4 years or 3 years or whatever it is now. That it still doesn't make enough MRR. So the only way is either I sell the thing or I can actually use it to do what I seem to be enjoying now, which is just advising other agencies.
That seems, I mean, so, all right.
Where does this fit within the bigger scope of other things you're doing too is another
That's part of it.
question. Yeah.
I think so. A model to look at this, like developing this thing as a business, or that can be a secondary concern, right? Like ideally it supports itself, obviously, but like, so think of this in terms of you are migrating away from like a chapter of your life, right? And you've learned all of this stuff.
Retirement.
A retirement, kind of, sure. And as part of the process of moving into the next phase of whatever you're building, you could build out this thing as a way of like looking through what you've learned, right? And then encoding it in a way that somebody else could learn it, right? And here's the tooling, and the process of doing this is teaching it to other people and then writing it down, right? It's like a fancy style of journaling, effectively, or it's a style of like your memoir or whatever. Because to take this craft further, you need to teach it. That's always the case. There's a point where it's not enough for you to just practice it anymore. You've gotten it to a place where it's at the end, it's as high as you can get the practice without teaching it now. And so if you teach it like to the best of your abilities, and you put together something that you're proud of, not to make money, but because it encapsulates your thinking, the thing will make money. You'll find a pricing, it'll attract the right people. Don't worry about that shit. Just do it well. Like, go in and be like, how do I teach this the best? How do I get this into people's heads? How do they benefit from what I know? Like, if that is your core purpose, then the pricing will be a secondary concern. You're like, okay, so how does pricing help me teach this well? Rather than how do I make money on this to make it viable? Like that, you have to flip those mentalities with this stuff, because it's going to be hard to teach this stuff. It's enjoyable, it's fun, but like, make it about like clearly expressing what you know, using all of your design abilities and the people that you have around you to help you teach this thing, and then like try to capitalize on it. Because if there's value in the thing, which there is, it will show itself. But stressing about the value up front will smother it, I think.
Such a drastic change right now with this thing.
I mean,
should we clone it, keep one as is, or just make a road mapping tool for people to just have fun with just creating quick roadmaps? And
you can do that. I mean, the simplistic version of this thing that's like a toy, right? Like, pop it open, cost a few bucks. Like, maybe it's a mental model. Like, there's a lot of potential here. It's like, yeah, again, like if the SaaS model is not working and you can't get automated signups, then it's not going to run itself as a robot. And you in this other piece of it, like, you enjoy, and there's some viability there. Like, this thing keeps it alive, right? And it's alive for a reason, not because you need it to exist to make money to prove that you can make a SaaS one. Who cares? It doesn't fucking matter. Like, what matters is you creating something that is an expression of like what you are trying to put out in the world. Like, it is a piece that you, Farzad, made, not one of a type, like a SaaS company or an agency company or whatever the fuck. Who gives a shit? Like, whatever you can turn it into that is the right like formation of this thing in the world, right? It provides a uniqueness because it needs to exist. This is the niche part, right? It fits within this niche because you are listening to what it wants to be, right? And what it wants to be, for now, what it sounds like is a teaching aid on how to run an agency in the Farzad method or the 3 drops method, right? So like, that sounds like something you can do. It's not easy. It's a lot of work, and you don't know what the amount of money that it might make, right? But like, if you know that there's a market for this thing, and that market has X thousands of millions or whatever dollars in it, like, that's nice. That makes it a viable project, you know? There's also the component of this thing being a good exercise for you personally to understand how you work and how you bring value into the world. Like, that is something that can help you move forward and move away from the identity structures that you've built over this time, right? Like, whether or not it fits into your bigger picture view, I don't know. That's something you have to decide. So, but I think that we're into an area on how like a particular project like is in alignment with what you're doing. Like we're closer to something like that rather than I want to make a SaaS company. No, you want to make a company, you know, like that you could go that route and it just doesn't work though. It's more like what do I care about deeply? What am I good at? Like how does software fit in? How does money fit in? How do people fit in? Okay, that's a stew. Let's try it with this instantiation. Let's try it with that instantiation. Like how are you pushing yourself to learn more about the world, right? And what you can offer or, you know, any of this stuff. So this is how I look at these things. Like, and you've got to think like you like teaching this stuff. You like helping other agencies do better, right? So how can you do that at a higher scale than one-on-one? This is a medium to work in that is suited to the types of skills that you have, right? Like you can paint on this canvas. And then if there's a way to optimize this thing for profit, you'll find it if it's fun to do. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I spend a lot of time trying the SaaS model. We spend a lot of time trying to automate the onboarding for an entire fucking year, which is insane when you think about it. When an entire year we spend just doing tons of onboarding experiments. It's just not valuable enough. The conversion of them and the
That's
rates
not
that
wasted work though. Like,
no,
because
yeah,
if you have an understanding of the pipelining into this, but you have an appropriate cohort, you've got it worked out. Like, you know how that stuff works now. Then it's just getting the right attention in the top of the funnel or however the fuck you want to think about it, right? Because when you have decent onboarding that's aligned with like desire, then it yanks itself through, right? And so you have felt into the value here, which is the thing that you are providing people, right? And if you could just you're commodifying this, you are turning it in, you are creating a digital Farzad that like exists in this thing that like anybody can go talk to, right? And then you get to remove and go become a new Farzad. This is nice.
It's like version controlling.
Kind of.
that's what retiring is, by the way.
Yeah.
There is something in you that you need to get out to be something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Express it. And if it, you know, and if it can help you pay the bills to become the next person, good. All the better. That's just fun. That's what Carbon Made did for me. I gave Carbon Made, you know, and had this relationship with the thing. And then now it is supporting me in doing what is next, which is a continuation of the same work. How it's a continuation and what form it takes time to find and takes lots of experimentation. And but part of the ability to do that is like saying goodbye to that last instantiation of myself, like and looking at why I got to that place and who I was and you know what relationship I need to have and what to carry on and what to leave behind. That's work though. That's process. That's part of the artwork. That's being an artist. Like, okay, negotiate these things, see what you can, and then tell the story so that other people don't have to go through hell. Because that's part of it.
I hope I'm not creating, I hope this is not just something that I'm like, all right, I'm passionate about this. Yes, I wanna see what comes out of it. I've seen results from just sharing what I've learned and people actually putting it to work, and I'm like, wow, it actually works. Like they are actually making more money by just changing very small pieces.
Yep.
They can relax more. Um, but I also could do that without the product, maybe. So I'm
Sure.
just hoping that I'm not doing the wrong thing by making this yet another project of an existing thing, just to not see that probably I failed with this. I should probably sell roadmap, cash out, and be a little bit more relaxed financially, and then go do this new thing as an agency advisor or whatever. But if I actually turn roadmap into this new thing and completely niche it into agency and speaking directly to agency owners and their, staff designers or whatever, I could perhaps come up with a new type of, I don't know, SaaS, consulting as a service.
I mean, yeah, that's basically, it's a combination of this. Like, I mean, I think that we'll touch on, decision points or whatever, like on what to do with this thing. Like, you know, uh, if you still have something to say through the product, right?
Yeah.
The money doesn't fucking matter. Like, money is just, it's a measuring stick if you want it to be, right? But like, how likely are you to become the type of person that can say what needs to be said through roadmap, right? This is about habits. Like, so can you form like a habit structure that will like enable you to show up over the time period that it takes to let this thing become what it is, right? That's not like I'm going to set out and I'm going to plan, I'm going to fucking do this, because you can do that, you can do that. But how do you grow this thing like in a way that's not going to blow you up, that you're not going to, that when you try to run from it or like see it as something else or whatever, you have the patience to be like, all right, I am doing something here with this. And what is it? I'm trying to squirrel away from it, or I'm trying to make it into something that it's not. Like, what is the habit structure? How are you working with this thing? Like, because it's a process of like becoming something more than you are now, right? And this is just the medium in which you are operating that process. Like, rather than it's a business and that business represents me and its success or failure is me as valuable or not, right? Like, because that model doesn't fucking work. Like, it doesn't. So, uh, how can you have a relationship with roadmap? And if the answer is you can't, that it's done what it's going to do, you learned that like this doesn't work, sell it, give it to somebody else, let them do it, and go make another thing, because you can make another thing. So it's the debate in here is what it has to teach worth learning? Like, is that going to move you forward? And that's an instinct thing. This is a gut thing, right? Like, if you need money from it, it may not be the right move, right? It may be that like, yeah, I don't know. This one is tough. This one you have to like sit and listen to yourself and be like, okay, I wish to know what going through the process of like turning roadmap into this model will teach me. And it may teach me that I have to fucking stop this, but be there to listen, And how are you going to listen to that? Like, what is the process of knowing that beyond just measuring success? How can you have a better measure of the success of the relationship with this process? If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Just some light things to think about while you're in the middle of moving.
It's a good time to do it. Everything's all fucked. It's all up in the air. So this is a good time to rethink things.
Yeah,
I was negotiating with
just part of it is, what do you want to do with your life right now? Like, how do you want to spend your time? And like, is this one of the ways that you would like to spend your time? Like the act of doing it, because you have options.
Yeah.
you get to choose what you're retiring and what you're growing into. I mean, you don't know exactly what you're going to grow into, but you can sort of choose. This is the power thing. If you can understand how this works and how to manipulate these little component parts, you can choose your path.
I want to figure out if it's actually possible to, you have an idea, you build a base model for it, you put the system in place, can somebody else run it for you and you are just advising your own company? Is that even possible? Or it's just not scalable? So, there's 3 jobs there, and which is only a consultancy, and I'm fine with it, just handful of projects per year with a lot of money. Then OFC is just my personal digital playground, and they're just people working there, just building stuff. It's not a profitable studio. All 3 combined. And then within, and I'm just doing all of these experimentations just to, if I'm thinking about something for more than a few years, I should just fucking do it. Otherwise it will drive me nuts. So I'm just doing that. But I would love to teach agencies.
There you go. So, I mean, then it's coming up with like the least complex way to do that.
Yeah, right. That's the model. We have a few.
Yeah. Like this is where constraints, like, so my, like the way I've been approaching these kinds of things is, all right, unload my taste, unload the idea that things can be seamless and pretty, unload all of it. Make the shittiest thing possible that can express the idea. It's awful. It's shitty. Like that is the value. It's shitty and you don't care. And then you look at the shitty thing and you're like, how can I make you better? Because you need to exist in the world because people want you to exist. And there is so in the case of doing the teaching stuff with agencies, like what's the smallest thing? What are the little components that, like, you already have some of these, like when you tell them how to do this particular way of thinking about how to do their business, that's a little one, right? Don't polish the fuck out of it. Put it on a piece of paper or like, and then add the other ones and see how they fit into a system, a shitty, ugly, like barely working system, right? No polish. Nobody gets to polish this thing. No fancy engineering, no nothing. Make it like you barely spend any money on it. Like, I mean, this is one way. You can come up with whatever constraints you need to offset the tendencies that you have, right? Like, frustrate yourself. Like, so that you come up with clever ways of doing this that require less energy in the long term. Because if you just throw money at it, then you're not frustrating yourself enough. Like, because if it's starved for money, then it will find a way to feed itself in a healthy way sometimes, right? Like, and sometimes you'll know this is where I put the money in. Like, this is how I've been kind of thinking about this. Also, I'm doing a force function where the thing is so complex that I can't do it myself. The only way that I will know what to do next is by getting a group of people together and talking to them. They'll know what to do next, not me. So like, and then being able to sit back and listen and be like, yeah, I think we should do this, and we should do that, and we should do this, and then I'm like, okay, what I'm hearing is let's do this, and everybody's like, yeah, and then you just do that. So like these kinds of things where, but whatever your model of that kind of thing is, there is a relationship to this that is like, it is constrained. It is like, it's frustrating in a helpful way that will push on the things that you need to learn to do this thing well. So I don't know. It's got to be a fun game. Just make yourself a fun game, a game that you like to play, that you enjoy showing up to all the time. Like, and And that game needs to be like fulfilling. It needs to be like, okay, when I get up here, this is fucking hard and it's something that I don't want to do, but figure out how to make it an opportunity every time. Like that's the hack that I have now. Like, fuck, I don't want to publish. Okay. How, what, one, why is there a resistance to publishing? Two, how do you make it fun to work through that resistance to find out what it's like on the other side? Like in a way that is like collaborative and fun rather than fucking sit there and finish it. Because I know I can, right? So it's like, how do you design yourself fun games that the byproduct of playing the game will be like an understanding of the world and that you could potentially sell if that's something that you're interested in doing through the play of this game. So it's how do you play into the next step? And then play into after that, you get more information on how to do it. And you're moving with reality rather than, planning something out and then fucking driving towards it no matter what. Anyways, this is some mentality switches.
I mean, this must be it. If this doesn't work, I sell it.
There you go. Now you've got a line in the sand. We'll hold you to it. You said if it doesn't work, you're going to sell it.
Yeah,
that's fine. That's a debt, right? That's a good constraint. And then like as part of this, you can work with the relationship you have. Like, what is it? Like selling it is not a failure, right? Selling it might be the right move. That might be how you distance yourself from it. It might be that it's somebody else's problem. You've taken it as far as you can go, but who knows? Like, having that sort of line in the sand is good. And then that's your initial constraint. Now, how do you make this experiment where you're teaching through the whole thing or whatever, like this is the practice, right? How do you create a fruitful practice in here? What other constraints do you put in play? Like that will provide momentum in the thing, right? In maybe a different way than you've approached it in the past. And some of these things won't work. They'll just blow up in your face. That's fine though.
Do you really just want to sell it and you're not letting yourself let it go?
That's a good question.
I'm just curious because like we have the whole discussion and then you're like, this is it. If this doesn't work, I'm selling it. And it was like, okay, maybe we just need to cut to that part. I don't know. I couldn't answer that question for you, but like, yeah, is it just time to let it go? Are you ready?
Such a free mental space if I don't have that portion of my brain occupied with roadmap, because it's the first thing. It was the first attempt at building a company other than an agency.
So
and
that's something. That's something I think like journaling, like something, some sort of practice of like, can I let this thing go? Am I ready to let it go? Am I ready for what's next?
That's cheap. You don't have to do any work other than sitting there with yourself. You don't have to hire anybody. You don't have to build anything. You just have to
black box the thing. So know there's like a psychic mental weight of going through the act of like figuring out what the curriculum is, and like there's like an instinct for like how much work that is. You just put that in a little black box and you're like, okay, do I want that or do I just want to let it go? Like, what does it feel like? The like thought of like put it in a little black and then throw it away. What does that feel like? Do you want to go run after it, or you're just like, see ya?
Because maybe it feels nice to have a failure. It just didn't fucking work.
Well,
I just went through one of these on.
Is it a failure though? Like, it's just something that it was its end. Like, it ended. I mean, is that
those
failure?
Are the same thing, and then you get a chance to redefine what failure means to you, right? Like this is an opportunity in that sense. Yeah.
But what a great feeling to just being okay with failing this, because failing is basically you put an expectation before you start something like this. If this will reach this,
Yeah.
And you're like, this didn't reach this. You're like, no, 1 year, 2 year. And in 3 years, like, fuck, enough. There is just been too much money pouring into that thing. And because it's the first thing, it's the first kid, it's the favorite kid, you
Yeah.
build these new things, but you're like, they're ready to go. But they're like, no, wait, this one still don't know how to walk.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the other thing with these is when you let them go, like the idea is not gone. You're still tapped into it. But in the space that you have by detaching yourself, right? Like, you know, letting your kid out into the world, uh, you see what you were trying to do and like what you were tapped into, but maybe the medium was wrong. Like, this is what I experienced with Ponder. Like, we were trying to build in a way that was incorrect for the idea, but it was what I knew, right? And
Yeah.
so the idea is coming back in a larger, more dispersed and different form, right? But it's still the kernel of the same thing. So having that out of my head though gave me the room to find it. So
Yeah.
yeah, anyways, you know, it sucked. It was hard. It was like, but like the second we decided to fucking toss it out the window, it was the best decision. I was just like, can't wait to get this done. Just get it out. And then there
Yeah.
was a process of grieving and letting go and all of these things. But that was instructive. It helped me like, okay, this is what I cared about here. This is what, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. But you can do this on paper. You can just talk to it. Be like, hi, roadmap. What do you want from me? Tell me what you want. And then you
Not
write
even
out what
from
it
you,
wants.
from the world. Like, what do you like? Are you
Same
ready
thing.
for?
I mean, it's all different angles on the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't want you anymore. I want someone new, and you're like, all right, fine, I'll find you a new parent.
Yeah.
Or I'm ready to go to sleep forever.
Yeah. Just kill
Okay,
me.
I'll put you to sleep.
Fine. It's back to the Marie Kondo thing. Just talk to your pants.
Right, right.
Roadmap is your pant. I mean, I think it's a good practice. Like, who are you? What do you want? What are we doing here? Like, okay.
It's so bad to be obsessed or even thinking of yourself. Um, I just wish I could just surgically remove the word potential.
Hmm.
It would free up. I would be able to see things as they are. We talked about this on the last call too. Just the ability to see things as they are and not their potential of being. So
Yeah.
that, oh, but it's still not there yet though. But probably maybe it is already there, and that's the maximum.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah,
mean, just like this is the parenting thing. If you if you know that your child or whatever it is has potential, but the thing needs to reach its own. You need to like have a hands-off approach as much as possible. You've done what you can, right? Like the reality is it's in the day-to-day relationship and how you show up there. I am enthused and I care and I want this thing like I want to express through this thing versus I need you to be something for me. I need you to fucking make me money because
uh,
that won't work. It doesn't. I've tried. It doesn't work. The thing's like, well, fuck you. And then you're in a fight. So
yeah,
like, but if you're in this relationship where like, all right, I need to express something. I need to help people as an object, as a project, as a whatever. And I need you to help me become that. Like you become together through the artistic work. But yeah, it's part of that is it's a discussion with yourself and yourselves and what you're channeling and all this weird shit. The basic way is just to have a conversation or just record it. Be like, uh, pretend to be Roadmap. Hi, I'm Roadmap, and I would like blah blah blah. Okay, maybe there's something in there. I don't know. Yeah,
new house activities.
there we go. See,
There's an
just
echo, so this is probably made for this.
walk around the house and just pretend to be Roadmap.
Yeah,
This is
it's
what
weird.
Roadmap feels like in this corner. This is what Roadmap feels like in the shower.
There's like
Fine.
a thing of like the reflecting on the life of roadmap. Like people talk about this like when they die, when they leave this earth, like my whole life flashed before my eyes. So there's some amount of reflecting back on what the experience was that I think is part of this. So you can watch the kid grow up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this can culminate in like a sort of virtual funeral for the thing. Like, like
like
have
that.
it die, you know, write it out or act it out or whatever it is, and feel like what that feels like. Because then you're sort of, it's dead and you killed it, or it died, and then you know how to relate to where it was valuable or whatever, you know. And it may be that you have to actually go through selling it and all that, but you know, there is preparation for this that I think that will teach you a lot, because you know how to keep it alive forever. You'll find another way to keep it alive. It's not hard. Like, I mean, it's a lot of work, but it's not difficult for you to do. How about that? And the hardest work there is to potentially let it go. Like, how do you do it, right? So, I don't know. I think that exercise is probably the most instructive thing that you can do, is just start to push into that thing. Because, yeah, I want to know what's in there.
Mm. 5 years, and I will stop all the digital shit and start living in the physical world and stop making this, done with this. Because it's so difficult. If you're actually selling coffee, or if
Yeah.
you're actually selling a couch or whatever, just whatever.
Yeah.
You're like, here, like, I don't need to do marketing for you. Like, I'm not selling to everybody. I'm just selling to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the most fun business that I had was on eBay. I'm just like, here's a product, and like I built it up, and then like I would sell shit on eBay all the time. It was great. And then like I'd talk to the person, I'm like, what do you need? What do you got? What do you got? What's going on? and then they send me money and I send them product and everybody's happy. So, and then yeah, it was great. Like that, like basic level of trade, you know, it's not abstracted. I have something of value, you have money or something to trade, and then we handshake it, and then you're happy and I'm happy and I can go do another trade, you know? Like, yeah, I mean, I figured out a way to do it digitally because I got there early enough, right? Like to be like, okay, so you can make software and that's hard to make, and then you can trade that for money. But I never did anything abstracted past that because I don't like doing it, you know, like, you know, package this and do that and do this thing and all this other stuff, and you got all this weird psychology. So I'm getting cool with some version of that. But yeah, like that thing that you're talking about, like having the connection to the real world be something that, like, this should all afford that. That's the point of this, right? So like part of what we're trying to practice with like building this new relational OS stuff or whatever is, how can this be a thing that helps you relate to other people in the making of it? How can it bring you like new people to hang out with in person? Like, how can, when you build software, it's not meant to keep you on the fucking computer. It's meant to do a little thing and then go leave and go be in the world. Like, these are part of the ethos of design that I have, because I don't want to be on the computer all the time. I want the computer to be an extension of me, to help me connect to other people, and then disconnect like gracefully to be in the world so that you can do it again, right? And that relationship is mediated appropriately, right? And this comes into commerce too. Like, what am I selling? How am I trading? You know, what am I offering? I don't know. This is active work in progress. I don't know. But I have that same sensitivity. I don't want to be on the fucking machine all the time selling stuff that doesn't exist. It's terrible. It's not worth it.
It's so bad. Yeah, because it's overwhelming. You're like, I can't
Yeah.
have everybody, like
Yep.
all
Yep.
customers, and
Yep.
who like. I just want to go. You need to be this tall. You need to be. Let's
Yep.
narrow it down as much as possible. So I know, I can imagine these are my customers. This is their lives. I can feel connected. I don't feel
Yep.
connected to
Yep. Yep.
anyone. Yeah.
That's good. This is good. Focus on this. What relationship do you want with the people you serve? Like,
Right.
what does that look like? And can you manage it demographically, or is it something else? For me, it's depth of connection. Like, I don't care like what your demographic information is. It is, how do you see the world? How do you engage with other people? And is this deep or is it shallow? Is it transactional, or is it like we're building or affording each other, and so like we are opening each other up in some way to things that we couldn't see otherwise? And like, what's the exchange there, right? Like, that's friendship. That's being a peer. That's like collaboration, right? That's, yeah, that thing, like figuring out what that relationship looks like to you, and the people that you are nominally serving, or in what relationship does that look like? Are you their boss? Are you their, are you their savior? Are you their teacher? What is that, and what are the pros and cons of that, right? And like, what would feel fulfilling when you show up every day and you're like, try this. What do you know about that? Like, there's an exchange of information, of being together, right? Like, I think this is a good thing to study, like to think on, because if you can figure that out, that's where your business is. That, and like, if it can fulfill your life and your work, and you do it naturally, it's not work. It's just, you show up and you're like, let's fucking do this again today. And like, you have the most energy because it's, you're in a virtuous cycle. So this is hard to find, though. You have to like listen to yourself. You have to study what you want and what you don't want, and where your fears are, and where, all of this stuff. It's tough. And you also have to listen to other people. Like,
Yeah.
because half the time, the thing that you're looking for, you can't see. The whole point is, you can't see it. You're blind. Like, because you have some conditioning that won't let you see over there, and like, the things that you value now are not the things that you need to go towards. All you can know is, you go back to core value, which is, I want a deep relationship with people. I don't know what the fuck that relationship looks like. I won't know until I start trying them. So yeah, this has been the past like 2 or 3 years for me, is just trying to fucking bang my head against this damn thing. And luckily Kristen's just like, do this. And I'm like, oh, fine.
The parrots are going bananas.
They're nuts. Okay, I think this is a good stopping place. We covered a lot again. Uh, I don't know, like, think on the, yeah, I think really, like, do that talk to the roadmap thing. It's the simplest thing you can do without building anything. See
Yeah.
what it wants. See how you relate to it. See how you relate to the people beyond it. Like, you've got a little bit of the like helping people with their agencies. Like, that's fulfilling. It lights you up, right? It's like, there's a place that you can give there. Um, and there is something to the giving. It feels fucking good. Like, sharing all of this stuff that you know with people and having it enacted, God, it's so fucking fun. Like, and then later on, like, there's value there. So I don't know. I play with all. I mean, yeah. Anyways, there's a bunch of stuff to play with in there. That's cool. Another one in the books. No easy answers. That's what these calls are.
It's always how it goes.
Next week, I know.
Yeah, you'll have it all worked out.
Yeah. By then, I have a model where I go, this is the plan. I'm going to go for trying this out for
Sure.
whatever month, and I'm gonna make it that this will, knock on wood, my last attempt.
I mean, if a week is what you need, it may take longer, but I say
I mean,
just
we've been
start the
working on this
conversation with it,
for,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are 3 people working on figuring this out, and
Yeah.
we have them gone over all of the tools in the market and all of the
Hmm.
pain points that it solves, and all of the areas that we can compete with other people, their tools. And we keep coming back to this, like, don't
Yeah.
say that's cool. Sell it as a thing that comes with another thing.
It makes sense. It's just whether or not you want to do that because you got to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
And for me, it's just a matter of how much can I get paid to do it, to make it all right, even if there is a future to it. Otherwise, I can't. I would just keep doing these calls with agencies that I'm doing.
Yeah.
But if there is a future of actually building a business around it where I go, all right, there was the source of income, the second source of income that I was looking for all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, by next week, hopefully I have a pricing structure that gives me the comfort of knowing somewhere down the road this thing gonna become a business.
See what it feels like. Plan it out. I'd say do some of that. Do some of the personal work with it. See how that
Yeah,
balances against as like a way to find that pricing. Like let the pricing come to you. Try that. See if it works. Don't know.
that would be so interesting.
Yeah.
It always is.
Hmm. You learn something.
Yeah,
It's unavoidable to learn. I used to get
That's true.
frustrated with this. Like, oh, another fucking life lesson. Sick of
Hmm.
this. Like when I was in my 20s, I'd get so annoyed. Like, this now? Like, yeah.
Hmm.
Because you learn by trial and error. You're
Yeah.
just like, ugh. Because you didn't see things coming, like personal relationships, work relationships. Like you're just like, oh, when is it gonna end? It's not going to.
Yeah. It doesn't get easier. You just get more graceful with it. You just you deal with the suffering more elegantly.
yeah, right. Elegantly,
Hmm.
the
That's the
facade.
goal.
Probably.
Got to get your wisdom somehow, I guess. This is how it
Yeah,
works.
it is.
Yeah.
All right. I'm out of
All
here.
right. All
Bye.
Bye.
right. Bye.